Welcome to Kabarett Radio. I'm Dan Bannis. With me is everyone's favorite pup, the good boy. And I'm in my new apartment. Moved in. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
Doing all right. It's been an exhausting week. Moving and moved about 40 miles away from my old place. And moving's horrible. No one likes it. It's like awful. I can't believe that I've done it so many times. And every time I do it, I'm like, never again. And then I move again. So I don't know. I guess I'm a moron.
You moved 40 miles away. Is that correct? You said?
Yes.
40 minutes away or 40 miles?
40 miles.
And you still consider yourself in LA?
Yeah, I would say so. No. I don't consider myself in LA anymore. I'm in Orange County.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Probably shouldn't be telling people shouldn't be telling people where the fuck we are. That's for sure. But in the greater Los Angeles area, and I am definitely in the greater New York area. But yeah, man, congratulations on the move. Glad you're, I don't know, away from Castle Grayskull or wherever the fuck kind of a place that LA is.
Yeah, it feels good. It feels good. Yeah, how are things with you, man?
Not bad, busy as always, but doing pretty good. Excited to be on the stream. Excited to have the stream up and running.
That's great. Yeah, same. It's bright over here, don't you think? Like inside the apartment?
Yeah, it's like good lighting.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's on a new camera too, so I think that helps. So let's get started. What was the crazy crap happening this week? Anything?
Oh my gosh. I think the big thing I was seeing on the internets was the Buzzfeed and I believe also HuffPo cutting their staff writers.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
And
it's a big story.
Yeah. And I kind of had this glimmer of hope that just the absolute crap that those two outlets was churning out. It's like, you know what? Maybe I'll look back on this in 10 years and be like, you know what? We were so nervous, but we forgot to give capitalism a chance. And it was a rocky period, but eventually the market corrected itself. And I don't know if I still feel that way. Like the market is, that's all, the market can do no wrong. Like it will correct itself because it's not a free market by any stretch.
Yeah.
But it would appear at least that they are losing money because they're losing readership. So, they're just not driving people towards their website as much anymore. And they have to lay people off. That, or they had anticipated growth to continue and hired based off of future gains, and those future gains were never met. I don't know. What I can say, it is encouraging watching outlets that I find to be despicable having to kind of circle the wagons and slow down a bit.
It is. It's a great feeling, isn't it? I was listening to that dude Anomaly. Do you know who that is?
I might. I probably recognize the channel if I was to pull it up.
Not a bad guy. He's an LA-based rapper, hip-hop artist, and conservative Trump supporter. And like a very, very mellow, chill sort of dude. But he has a popular channel. And I was listening to his video on this subject. And he said some very interesting that apparently a lot of the people that they were laying off. So BuzzFeed, I'm sorry, this might have been Tim Pool saying this.
Pool was saying something about the demographic for the people being
right. Yeah, it was Tim Pool. So what's funny is that apparently a lot of the people that were laid off were like their intersectional type hires, like the ones that covered a specific gender, race beat, like a demographic beat. And so it is heartening for people who are not into, demographic, what's the word that I'm looking for? The collectives that are so big, like the intersectional collectives that are so big right now. It looks like Buzzfeed and all these news outlets are realizing that it isn't the future and that things are probably going to change dramatically. Now, I mean, does that mean they'll be better? Time will tell. It's hard to see them being worse, though,
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like they're trying to put fires out at the moment.
Yeah.
And I mean, we constantly hit these points over and over again. It's becoming, quite frankly, like a lazy exercise to kind of rehash these points. But
yeah.
I mean, how ignorant and how lazy and how blatantly racist is it to be like, well, we need an Indian person to cover, Indian news.
Mm-hmm.
A beat writer that's, Mexican to cover Mexican news because only a Mexican could really cover Mexican news. Like, what kind of fucking dumb shit is that? Because let's be honest. I mean, I'm a white dude,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a black lab, but I'm a white dude. And
yeah,
I gotta be honest with you. I disagree with white people all the fucking time. There's no general consensus in the white community. I'm sorry, there really isn't.
I mean, white people brought us Grey's Anatomy. Wait, did they? I don't know. Was that one of those Shonda Rhimes shows? I don't know. But it seems like something white people would do.
Right. That Grey's Anatomy seems like a gift on behalf of white people. Right up there with, like, I don't know, a peaty scotch, like that's just a white person thing. Fucking, I don't know, lederhosen and jumping in frozen rivers on New Year's Eve. Like, that's white people shit. We got the
Shonda Rhimes created Grey's Anatomy. I take it back.
All right. You know what? We don't want to appropriate that.
Good. Overrated Shonda Rhimes. Yeah.
Out of all of the shows that I would be willing to give up on behalf of white people, take that one. I really don't care.
Yeah. I know someone who worked for her, actually. And, wait, let me see this.
General thoughts?
Let me just double check. I'm pretty sure it was...
How'd that person like writing for that person?
So I know someone who wrote for a show that it was a short-lived show that she produced. One of the many, many shows she's produced. Look, I'm sure has her talents, but he said she was a nightmare, and everyone there thought she was a nightmare. She ran the place like a tyrant, and that it was pretty miserable. So I don't know. I've never really watched many of her shows, to be honest, but they also just seem very sensationalized and goofy. But I knew a guy who wrote on one of her shows and had nothing positive to say. So,
well, anyway. I will say that some of my favorite artists of all time have been known to be very difficult to work with. So
that's true.
Maybe I'll give her a pass.
Yeah, it's not but you know what? I used to be a lot more like, you know what, you gotta separate the art from the artist, but everyone in the world has decided no, you don't anymore. And I'm starting to kind of agree with that more than I used to.
I'm gonna push back so hard on this.
Okay. I look forward to that. Well, I mean,
here's the thing, Dan.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm always discovering more and more about people as I dig in more and more to their lives. Mm-hmm. But I can always enjoy art for what it is, which is something that I can take in at each individual level of enjoying that art. For instance, I don't even have to enjoy every movie someone has made. You know what I mean? I can enjoy each movie differently, or not at all. And I don't know how I'm supposed to filter that if I know a lot about someone that made that, and I'm trying to keep that in mind as I'm experiencing this art or whatever they've presented. And then I don't know, 50 years down the line, it comes out that this person's like, I don't know, a child molester or something like that. Something terrible, something absolutely unforgivable that you would be like, Jesus, that is fucking evil. I don't know. I still think that the art stands on its own. It's just something on its own.
Well, on the other hand, though, it's like it's virtually impossible to. I don't know. Maybe not virtually impossible, but it's very hard to like you can't watch the Cosby Show anymore without thinking, how weird is this?
I don't know. I don't know. I probably could. I still think Cosby's records, are, passed down like a comedic Bible. That doesn't mean I don't think he is probably one of the most nefarious, serial rapist of all time. I mean, he's an absolute fucking monster, and I hope they lock him away and throw away the key. I really, I wish nothing but the worst for him. I really mean that. However, a joke is a joke. You know what I mean? Cosby made a joke, but he isn't the living, breathing element of the art. You know what I mean? People are people, and not everyone's an artist. You know what I mean?
I don't think you have to necessarily just erase it all, and I don't think people should. But I do I'm realizing more and more, I guess, that it's not actually possible to separate the art from the artist. I'm not saying I think it's a good thing to try, but it's not. I don't think it's possible. Like I look at.
All right, I get that.
Because I realize that I look at Roman Polanski.
Sure.
He's did some horrific things. Like I find it really fascinating. I was talking about Roman Polanski the other day, or Kevin Spacey. Like it's hard to watch a lot of his stuff without to the same degree. It's hard to. That caveat will always be there. Roman Polanski wrote two movies that I think are two of the greatest movies about evil ever made.
Okay, fair enough.
Chinatown and Rosemary's Baby. And, two kind of different sides of like what evil actually is. And then he engaged in an act that, many, many, many people, it's hard to, even if you, I don't know, it's hard to see it as anything but immoral or unethical, if you prefer, but like, it just is, there's no doubt about it. And he also didn't own up in any way or try to
he ran away.
He didn't offer any penance whatsoever. So it's like, and this is a man that clearly has a very firm understanding of what evil is and that it exists, or at least that the idea of it, maybe like if you don't believe in like God or any of that stuff, then it's like, then I don't know. I mean, I've talked a lot to people about like, there are differing ideas about evil and whether it can exist without like a higher power. But from his movie Rosemary's Baby, which having had a Catholic upbringing, I felt like it really nailed their like Catholic or the Catholic or Christian idea of like what that means.
Sure.
And to a degree, and with a complexity that I'd never seen before. And Chinatown, showed like the corruption of LA to a degree that I don't think I'd ever seen before. And it's like, if you look at his life, like both those things came into play to a dramatic degree in his own life, So that being like the corruption of Los Angeles and the police department and everything, and weird. I don't know, with all that like Sharon Tate stuff, like just
Sure.
weird, bizarre, cultish actions. So
What's interesting? I would point out that he did run to open arms across the ocean, right? When he went to Europe, they were like, "Hey, man, fine by us." It's kind of fucking crazy to think about.
Care.
They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. That's the land of people marrying off their relatives for political power. Of course, they don't care over there.
That's true.
Long generations of families breeding with specific other wealthy families, and oh my god,
and intense sex cover-ups, as not France, and not the one I'm thinking of, but in the UK. There's a major one a few years ago that has kind of been largely erased from the national or the online consciousness. But
if I may press, I'm curious about what you're referencing.
Oh well, in I guess it was in the royal family, not as much as the Parliament, but like there's a underage like sex trafficking scandal where they were. It was a lot like the Catholic Church, abusing kids and passing them around. And it was it's actually a huge scandal. It was in about 2013, and like a pretty giant sex ring. And I remember even like Peter Serafinowicz, who's a hysterical British comedian, tweeted about it, and I thought it was very brave of him. And I was like, wow, this is going to be an incredible scandal. And then it was basically erased completely from the news. Let me see if I can find anything about it. But most people don't even know that this was like a news story for a summer, and then it wasn't.
Hey, while I am scrolling through my YouTube page and a few things that are recommended for me, I'm curious, did you watch the last episode of SNL?
No, I did not. What was it, James McAvoy?
Yeah, it was. And he's a Scottish actor, and I thought he just brought a real air of what's the best way to put it? I really think he was just genuinely a real good addition to the cast for this.
Really?
That episode. I thought he really handled himself well. However, I'm just gonna say this. I didn't watch I've been watching less and less SNL the past 2 years.
I haven't seen it same with me.
Yeah, the past 2 years, it's been harder and harder for me to get through a whole show without feeling as though someone is waving their finger at me. But there was just a genuinely apolitical, funny, clear game sketch called Air Traffic Control, and it was about Kim Kardashian's plane or something, and they need to make an emergency landing, but they're in Scottish airspace, so they get on the horn with Air Terror, from Glasgow Airport, and they just can't understand what they're saying. And oh my god, it is so simple and funny. And then the button at the end of it is, well, sorry, you're leaving our airspace. Wales will now be taking over from here. And they're like, oh, thank God. And then the Welsh have such a even more difficult accent to understand.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just like, man, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of apolitical sketches on SNL, but to
Yeah,
see
there are.
there really are. And I'm not saying that they all, are just, oh, it's a giant propaganda machine, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But in many ways, it really is a propaganda machine. I mean, the amount of political sketches that, if there are a political sketch, they will lean one specific way. So when I've never seen them lean the other way. Even when Tom Hanks was the redneck on Black Jeopardy, it's not like they portrayed him in a positive light, as much as they're like, hey, would you believe it? There's even some things that poor black people and poor white people agree on. I mean, that was kind of like the they don't trust the government because inherently they've both been fucked over by it. And I was like, you know what? Even for that sketch, they didn't really take the other political tack. They didn't lean right. I mean, all these sketches lean left. All these sketches will lean left. And that's
right.
I'm kind of okay with that to some degree, but I'll tell you what, especially over the past 2 years, it's fucking draining because the left needs to be made fun of now more than ever because of how hysterical they are. I think the right has a punching bag called the president that needs to be made fun of, should be made fun of. Don't get me wrong. But the left is full of these just absolutely hysterical people with their intersectional politics. The fact that we have to take intersectional politics seriously, to me, is such a failure of comedy. And it truly shows how it's a comedy show run by NBC for sure.
Yeah.
It is a corporate show. And
that's the thing. And I think that's the thing we're finding with this Buzzfeed, the layoffs. And is that intersectionality is corporate culture. Like that's what it is. It's the new like that, and it's amazing that so many people still aren't aware of that. That like the culture is not like white guy in a suburbia. It's not that at all. It's like fake demographic stuff, pandering to subcultures. So. Yeah, whether it be like for a while, obviously, like the nerd thing was very big, and then they had to keep, fragmenting further and further until it's like that, until it's like obviously, the whole, black, lesbian, trans, blah 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 blah. So it's like they just keep pigeonholing further and further, and think that's how they're going to make money. And I think it worked for a while, but. People are
because it was fresh and new, and I think people were like, "Look at this."
People didn't know what to make of it, and most people don't think too deeply about it. But it obviously is unsustainable, and they're realizing that now. Especially when they're starting to fail, and they just start attacking everyone and just harassing people. Saying if you don't like it, you're racist, or like that silly 2016 Ghostbusters thing. Like, how dare you? You don't like women, so you must be a racist.
Whatever. Right. That's why I've hated movies before in my life, but this time the reason I don't like this movie is because it had women in it. It has nothing to do with the fact that I think that Bridesmaids was probably one of the funniest movies to come out in that decade. There's nothing to do with
it was great.
It was hysterical. Yeah. And now if I even raise my eyebrow and say like, well, wasn't a huge fan of that Ghostbusters reboot, especially as someone who really loved the franchise as a young kid in New York. Yeah. It's very nostalgic for me. So I come from a very protective place, It's my Santa Claus more than anything else. So don't ruin it for me, so to speak. Yeah. And you know what? I felt like they were playing with the toys the wrong way, and I wanted to be a control freak and say that's not Ghostbusters, just like the prequels. Everyone goes, well, that's not Star Wars. You get nerdy about it. You get very protective of it.
Well, I do want to ask though. So here we are, and BuzzFeed is laid off 15% of their staff. Huffington Post laid off their entire editorial staff. And
there will be no more editing at Huffington Post.
Right.
If you have an idea, we're printing it. I'll print it.
And honestly, it didn't seem like there was much editing going on to begin with.
Right,
so.
A lot of dead weight, sure.
Yes, but so where do you think we go from here? Do you think like where does the mainstream media go? Like, where is all this headed? Because they don't have a working market, you know?
Well, I think there will be a corner for the market of hyper leftists, hyper radical progressives, the way there always was in NBC and all that stuff. But CNN, how they started playing that game like MSNBC did, I feel like you have to return that market share back to that extreme, and kind of you have to return back to the center in order to stay afloat. And I think that's going to be the funniest. Here, let me just expand upon that idea. If that is the case, and you have to kind of gradually return back to the center because you lost so many people in by jumping to the far left, how awkward is this sort of retraction, this gradual return going to look like? Like, I think it's just going to be so funny. The same news anchors and the same writers and the same, publications are all going to be like, ha, 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 like, remember when we were so crazy and said like everything was like an assault on trans people's lives because you wanted to debate what's biologically a woman and what isn't? Remember how we were like yelling at everyone saying that was crazy? Like, we're ready for a debate now. So you can talk to us, people. I mean, we're not crazy. It's like, you were. Like, you were. You guys drank the Kool-Aid, right? It's like a person returning back from a cult going like, I'm cool, guys. Like, you can try. Like, I'm cool. Like,
I was just joking about, castrating myself and flying on a spaceship. That was all. Or no, better. I mean, here's what they'll do. They're just going to pretend like none of that ever happened.
That's just what I'm saying.
The stupid Ghostbusters thing, It's like, oh no, we're making a new Ghostbusters. It's going to be
return to the roots.
Right. Just a continuation of the original series. But it's like, okay, but what about the one from 3 years ago that you said if we didn't like, we were all Nazi racists?
Yeah, remember that part where you disparaged all the audience and people that love that shit? Like, remember when you pointed and said the only reason you would hate this is because you subconsciously or not hate women.
but here's the thing, like, I feel like in order to become a centrist, like a down the middle sort of thing, which it's going to be, I honestly, I feel like I'm going to hate that even more because, like, right now, like, I don't like racism. I don't like the racist way that BuzzFeed does their stuff. I don't like, the leftist racist narrative, which is what it is. So, because I'm pretty down the middle,
not racist,
classical liberal sort of belief. Not racist.
I'm pretty down the middle. On the whole, I would say
I'm not racist. Yeah. So it's going to be so annoying when they try to capture that market, the centrist market, and they say like the stupidest centrist positions, and it's going to be like their version of Tim Pool, except not intelligent at all, like missing the point of every story and like the worst version of that. You know what I mean? Like, because they always tend to do that. So it does make me think about,
you could say to yourself like, well, the market should be not just waiting for these newspapers that were centrist, went far left to return back to the center. Where's all the ones that have remained in the center? Shouldn't they have grown, right? Shouldn't people have been flocking to it? But oddly enough, and this is the scary thing, those outlets, those news publications, those YouTubers, all the people that are in the center have been attacked or scrubbed from the internet, or like driven off or labeled like a scapegoat in modern society. You know, it's like I just watched Apocalypto a couple of days ago, and I was saying to myself, I'm like, oh yeah, we still sacrifice people all the time because human beings don't evolve that quickly. That was only a couple hundred years ago. So human beings still need a scapegoat. We still need to mutilate people to feel like the evil will be driven from the whole, the population, because we had a few good people go down in flames. Like, we love a Twitter assassination. Like, we love that more than anything else, watching that happen. And you know what? It's not the healthiest way of going about things. I will say that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring up sacrificing people, because there was another story that has gotten quite a bit of coverage this week. I don't know if you know where I'm going with this.
I may not. I may not. You're making me very nervous right now.
Yeah, you should be, because this is okay. So, in your great state of
New York,
oh
boy,
there was a they allowed for abortion at any point in the pregnancy. Now, I know a lot of people on the right are really upset about this.
Sure.
And
sure. I have my own opinions on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I tend to assume the best with these things. I don't, abortion is, I'm like a lot of guys who are just like, I don't know, it's not for me to say. However, and I was perfectly fine with that. However, whoa, this is backwards, isn't it? Oh, is it still back? No, there we go. Then this happened, and I had to say, I'm at the point where I now know that I have to have an opinion on this subject, because after the New York thing happened, other states are trying to get in, and as is the case with this sort of thing, they always try to push it further and further these days.
Sure.
So this Dem bill, the Democrats, this Kelly Tran, I believe is her name, a Democratic delegate, or Kathy Tran in Virginia. So she proposed a bill that would allow for abortion at any level of pregnancy, up to and including the birth of the child. So the governor clarified, it's no doubt about it, because the governor of Virginia, trying to backpedal this and deal with all the blowback because people were upset. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam tried to spin it, and said that it was really blown out of proportion, and explained, we don't want the government to be involved in these types of decisions. Totally agree, understand that. But then asked about third trimester abortions, the governor said, well, if a mother is in labor, the infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physician and the mother
as to whether or not
to then kill the kid.
That's right.
That's a baby. A delivered baby.
That's right.
It's a delivered baby.
Right.
And it's like it just. I'm sorry, but like the propaganda that has gone way too far. Like the whole, it's my body, my choice. At that point, no, that is not your body in
Right.
any way.
Right.
And so it's
That's a
like,
delivered baby.
yes,
That is a delivered baby. And I think something that we need to keep in mind is that if you were to visit your doctor with your significant other and say, all right, when's the due date? And they'll give you a date. They'll give you, say, all right, it's probably this date, right? 9 months from now. But they're going to say, look, if it's a couple weeks before, it'll be a healthy baby. Shouldn't be a problem. It'll be premature, but that's still a healthy baby. It could be a couple weeks after, but not more than 2 weeks, or else the baby has complications and can actually, well, start ingesting its own feces, believe it or not. So there's this month-long, like, plus minus around the due date where it's a baby. It's a fucking
yes,
human being.
right.
It's just waiting to be delivered.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the weird thing about children is that human beings need tremendous amount of care. I mean, if you ever see like a gazelle being born in the wild, it comes out of the womb and it starts dancing, galloping right
Right,
away.
right.
Human beings are kind of like half baked when we come out. We need to kind
Yes,
of be nursed along for a few years.
that's right.
And the point I would be making there is that, well, if you're not a fully developed human being, quote unquote, well, now what are we talking about? Are we talking about children? Like, are children not humans because they're
Right.
not, like now? And it's like, well, that'd be such an extreme thing to say. Well, we're in this room now because that's a delivered child.
Mm-hmm.
It has dreams. It wants a mother. It knows what it's grasping for, a mother's arms. It's the whole king caboodle. That's a fucking human being, and we're gonna sanction killing that human being. It is no different, and I stress this 100%. It is no different than the early stages of Nazis euthanizing the elderly and mentally handicapped from the state and given that a state sanction. And this blatant disregard we have for human life is truly disturbing. Now, that
Yes.
doesn't mean I'm willing to have a debate over whether or not at a certain weeks, whether 20 weeks or, how plus or minus, what are we talking about? I'm even willing to entertain that conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
let's call a spade here and say that when you deliver that baby, that is a human being with rights.
Yeah.
And you don't have a right to kill that child.
No.
Right?
Not at all.
Not at all. And let's stop pretending like this is something that, let's stop pretending that the far left has that much political pressure where the majority of people are in agreement with this, because I guarantee you they are not. Not even my body, my choice women are for this on the whole. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. The reality is, though, the problem that I'm seeing is like the propaganda and the idea of being pro-choice as like, a feminist talking point has become so strong. Certainly in the urban circles, like in the Los Angeles circle that I've been in for a long time, that no one would even entertain like a pro-life argument. It's just so not accepted culturally, socially.
Because it's
You
not a
have to
pro-life
be
argument, it's an anti-women argument. That's how it's
right.
framed.
That's right. But it's like it's gotten insane. It's gotten absolutely insane because they're literally talking about killing a baby that has been born. And
Oh my God. I mean, doesn't that sound so fucking disturbing to you?
It's like the most disturbing thing. They used to have like, I mean, I'm sure they do, but I remember in grade school, they had jokes, that were like, dead baby jokes, and because it was so shocking and horrifying, and it's like,
right.
What's the most horrifying thing a 13-year-old kid could think of?
Dead
And it's
baby.
like, and now it's becoming sanctioned. It's not. I mean, let's not be hyperbolic, but it was presented and defended by the governor of Virginia.
Yeah.
So like, I there's no, and everyone is so afraid of being seen as anti-woman, but dude, like half of babies are women. You
Yeah.
can't just kill a baby. You can't kill a baby. And I like.
What if we don't name it? Can we
You know,
kill it then? Like, if it doesn't have a name, it's not really a
right.
human, right?
But you know, the libertarian argument is generally pro-choice, and I mean, I still have problems with, you know, the federal government getting involved in some of these decisions. But I mean, I'm certainly pro-life up to, you know, at a point.
Yeah.
Certainly the point of delivery.
Jesus Christ,
you
it's
know,
so
it's
bizarre
insane.
to hear us trying to like, this is the new line now. This is the new line
right.
now. Like I cannot fucking believe this. Like I said,
Yes.
I was always willing to like, all right, you know what? It's a, you know, you're 20 weeks in. I mean, you've made some major headway here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going to have a debate on whether or not that is a life form in you that you are now sustaining, and whether or not a decision, a responsible decision, should have been made earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have to bear the consequences of this, right? It's not like you get to be a mother, you know, post-delivery 3 years down the road and be like, you know what? I just don't feel like I don't want that responsibility anymore. Like, I'm just not going to take care of my kid. That's called neglect, and you can go to jail for that. So you just can't help neglecting a child, you know, like it's very interesting to me that we are now in this room. What I find again to be the most disturbing is the parallels you see with the dehumanization of certain human beings in the 20th century in fascist Europe, the way that they're like, well, they're mentally handicapped and genetically speaking, we're superior to them. And, you know, I'm sure if they knew their fetus would turn out to be a major fan of, you know, Resla Aslan, you know, they'd be like, oh, no, save this one. You know, I'll do anything to save this one. You know, but it's wild to me that you know what, Dave Smith. Has been very vocal about this. You know,
libertarian comedian who I've gotten into listening to his podcast a lot. I really like his podcast.
It's probably the best one out there right now.
It's really good. Yeah,
it's so good. I have the joy and the privilege of being able to see him about once a month when he performs at the Soho Forum in New York, and it is interesting to hear as a libertarian him go through the changes, and to see, because you know what, he is right. Libertarians are kind of these people that are kind of on the spectrum, right? We love playing these games of like, well, the big what ifs, like, well, if this happens, does the government have a right then to get it? No. Well, I mean, like, only if this property is from this person in this case would have to be then. You know, we love playing that stuff. And he played that game all throughout the abortion issue, and I'm sure he had, you know, flip-flopped on his ideas or changed his opinions. The flip-flop is the wrong word, you know. But he said when his wife gave birth and they handed that baby to his wife, never been a mother before, a new mother, she snapped into this deep biological groove, like she knew exactly what to do, and he was blown away by it. And you know what? We don't glorify motherhood anymore, and now we're at a point where we're killing fucking babies. Okay? It's all about women. Women have to be CEOs of companies in order to have any sort of value in our society anymore, and that is so fucking wrong that and if you need any more proof that we've been pushing women to have a place in society strictly in the workplace, and we said, oh, to be at home is demeaning to a woman. Well, now look at it. Now
just
who gets to be the mothers? You know?
Just to be clear, we are right up at that precipice. I mean, look, we're over it, but to be clear, like, obviously, you know, this hasn't passed yet. It hasn't, you know, there's been an incredible amount of blowback, but the fact that we're talking about it, and in New York, this thing did pass, and it passed to cheers, you know, like, I don't know how to feel necessarily. Look, I mean, I would have to say I'm opposed to
killing babies. Are you really gonna take that stand?
Yes, and I'm opposed to third trimester abortions. Like, you know, I think that, and the irony, of course, is that, like, from what I can see, you know, I'm no gynecologist or midwife, but it does appear that the science is showing that, you know, the fetus is formed earlier than people realize. Like, that's what I've found in my studies, and the more that we, you know, our sonograms and that technology enhances, like, we see, like, they seem to have a life in there. So it's like, it's very bizarre that the libertarian perspective, and I've talked to a lot of libertarians about this. I went to a libertarian conference where I was speaking to some hardcore, like, dogmatic libertarians who are dogmatically pro-choice about it. And, you know, it's really hard for me to square the pro-choice, the vehement pro-choice view with libertarianism, because, like, you know, it's hard when you are hyper focused on the individual. It's like they are separate individuals. I mean, at some point, it is a separate individual with rights, and it's like, and if you view life as like a spectrum, if you view perspective life as valuable too, which is like, we know that it's going to be a life, then it's like, it's very hard to not see it as having rights. You see what I'm saying?
Or like, inherent value to society, right? I mean, and I've heard arguments where they're going to twist it to be, where they've twisted this around to be like, well, you know, what's interesting above all, and it's always interesting the way who's they, where conservatives will turn this on its head to kind of show off to progressives how it's anti-POC, you know what I mean? Where it's like most abortions are in poor neighborhoods, or, you know, all this.
Or the stuff about, you know, Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, was like very big into eugenics and stuff, which is, you know, it is true. But I don't know. I don't think that those are super you know, I don't think those are super compelling arguments.
Yeah, and I don't even think they need to be said at this point, considering the kind of stuff that governors in New York and governors in Virginia are really playing with. I really don't like the creeping sort of far leftism that it used to be New York and LA. Chicago was always there too.
Yeah.
You know, now it's like New York, LA, Chicago,
Denver, San Francisco, Austin,
Denver, Seattle.
I mean, basically all of Florida, basically.
You know? And it's like, and now it's going to Virginia. Yeah. It's like, give me a break.
It's every urban area, and it's like a hive mind now. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
And it's very bizarre, and it's made it very, very difficult for me to connect with anyone who's like a proponent of the left at this point in any way. I mean, I'm becoming more and more detached from from people like that, because it's like this like coming out a story like this where the bill comes out that allows for the killing of infants, like delivered baby infants, and there is no outcry in any way from anything but pretty much far right media. I mean, most people don't even know that this happened. So
I sent a link to the Washington Post, which is a fairly, I don't know, how would you characterize their political leanings?
Oh, here, hold on one second. I gotta take this. Hello? Hey, how's it going? No. I don't know what I'm gonna eat for dinner. I'm actually live right now on a live stream. I know. Because I didn't know if you needed to get a light into the building. Yeah, you can do that. That'd be great. Okay, see you soon. Okay, bye-bye. Sorry about that.
Do not be sorry.
What's that?
Do not be sorry at all.
Yeah. A little bit of humanity,
Right.
I have a life. And,
you're not. You're not some sort of basement dwelling, psycho who hates women.
No, I have a very good woman who gets dinner for me when I'm on
How lovely is that? How nice is that?
Life ain't half bad.
And hopefully she doesn't find that sort of thing demeaning, but a lovely gesture to her significant other.
Hopefully not.
Right? Well,
hey,
when someone breaks a window, you're the one with the bat in your underwear that has to confront them. So that's just how that works. Now, I shared a Washington Post article with you about this, and I'm curious on how you would characterize the Washington Post political leanings.
Oh, well, obviously they're left-leaning for sure.
Sure. And let's see how this is sort of like a secondary article to Governor Cuomo's abortion law that he signs. So I kind of want to see how they go about this.
Yeah. I'm trying to get screen share up. Oh, man. Where is this? So I want to share this if possible,
Yeah, let me try it.
Okay.
You got me here? You got this?
Yeah.
All right. So the article reads, and by the way, Washington Post, democracy dies in darkness. Good Lord. It's like Auschwitz had that sign that said work brings freedom. It's like, give me a fucking break here. So let's hear what they have to say.
Want New York's Governor Cuomo to be excommunicated for his abortion policy.
Which I find to be kind of funny. I mean, it would be somewhat fitting, to be quite frank. Like, they let all the other abortion stuff go, but it's like, dude.
Yeah.
Like, there would be a conversation between the mother and the doctor. What do you think that doesn't the doctor take a Hippocratic oath? Like, I will not.
No, I know. Yeah, it's so bizarre. Well, look, at the end of the day, the arguments for abortion, it's like, it really does come down to, like, when does life begin? I mean, it seems like it's pretty darn early. And it's like, I don't know, I do think maybe you need an arbitrary cutoff, but it probably should be pretty early,
Yeah, but that's probably better than after the delivery.
Yeah, you can't kill a child.
Right, sorry.
You can't
have a conversation with your doctor like, so what do you think? Does a lifetime of responsibility seem good for you right now? Like, how do you feel about this one? Because we'll just throw it away.
It's also like, it shows like how obnoxious the deification of like doctors and like science has become these days, where it's like we do see them as like a priest class in our kind of like secular society. So it's like, well, if a doctor consults, then he should be able to like kill a child.
Right. And
No,
I don't know how
no,
doctors feel about this at all.
right.
Like,
I
I
don't
know many
care what,
doctors who are capable. I do. I know
yeah,
doctors who are
for
capable
sure.
of performing
I don't care how many medical degrees you have. It's not okay for you to kill a child. It's not
Right. It's not
okay.
okay. It's not okay.
It's
Right. I don't
not
care
okay.
how many German scientists said
Right.
being attacked aren't real people, you know?
I
And
mean, Dr.
neither are you.
Dr. Mengele was a doctor, you know. He
Yes,
had a
he was.
degree.
You know? The U.S.
So
government performed the
whatever.
Tuskegee experiments. You know, I'm not.
Yes, they did.
So, all right. So after New
Gave
York,
syphilis to many black men. Anyway.
true, in Alabama, from what I understand.
Yes.
After New York Governor Andrew Cuomo signed into law Tuesday one of the most expansive abortion rights bills in U.S. history, some prominent Catholics have urged Cardinal Timothy Dolan of New York to declare Cuomo excommunicated. I just love how right away they don't say like why this law would push people to want to excommunicate him. Like
Right.
there has been abortion laws before. What makes this one different? So let's
Mm-hmm.
just keep going ahead with this. It is clear that the governor's work to pass New York's Reproductive Health Act is at odds with Catholic Church's well-known opposition to abortion, rooted in the belief that an unborn child is a person deserving of protection. The way they almost condescend to that is pretty brutal. Still, despite
Mm-hmm.
mounting pressure from Catholics, Dolan probably won't excommunicate Cuomo. Excommunication is a specific kind of penalty in Catholicism. It can be imposed only under circumstances clearly defined in the Church's Code of Canon Law. Good. That's a nice definition. You want to define what a human child is? Like,
Yeah.
while we're discussing that, it's like, all right, an excommunication person, all right, excommunication, yada, yada, yada. Catholic may be a judge by his bishop or pope. Okay. It's not clear that Cuomo's action, offensive as it is to Catholic teaching and sensibilities, fits the bill for excommunication. One excommunicatable offense does not deal with abortion, but it applies only if a Catholic is directly involved in an abortion. Oh, Jesus Christ. Some experts have argued that, so they're not even talking about the specifics of this.
Right. Yeah.
That's like, don't you feel a bit like you're not telling the whole story here to like why Catholics feel this way?
Right. Yeah, no, I know.
And I love how it's like it's only the Catholics that feel this way.
Right.
Like you would have to be a Bible-thumping Catholic to feel this way.
Yeah. The weird thing is, like, it seems to me in my like internet sort of scavenging that the irony is that as far as things go further and further left and more hysterical, like they're pushing more and more people to conservative religion even. You can see it in, I mean, Dave Smith jokes about it, but it's like, I think he's only half joking. Comedian, Owen Benjamin is become very religious.
Yeah, I would actually say almost he sounds akin to the people I knew that were born again.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty close to it. I mean, I've looked more, harder into religion in the last couple of years than I had ever really, and I can't say that I'm, that I came to any real solid conclusions, but I definitely have more I get it more as I see people in society just being like, well, maybe it's okay to kill kids. I'm like, okay, I get why people ended up gravitating towards like more rigid doctrine, religious doctrine, because people make really stupid decisions, clearly. I guess like what shocks me is how much people can't think clearly, so
Sure.
I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, look, I'm really more talking about from a social standpoint, because I don't I don't really, I definitely don't have like, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it from a social standpoint. It's like I don't have just blind belief, but boy, it definitely makes things real when you read stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you this. I think there is definitely a swing back to some sort of religious tenets, and I think a lot of that has to do with things that Peterson had spoke about, Jordan Peterson had
Right,
spoke about, which is
right.
like, look, Nietzsche was pretty wary of the idea that God is dead, we have killed him, and that means that the value structure and the morals that we associate with religion will be annihilated and replaced with something else. Why will they be
Yeah,
replaced with something else? Because human beings need a value structure. And I think for a lot of
yeah.
people, this value structure that we've placed in politics, even if you agree in the politics, right? Even if you are a far leftist, you just go, well, by the way, that's why leftism has truly become a religion. And let's say you're someone who's kind of on the fence, like, oh, I'm kind of a liberal, or I'm kind of
Hmm.
a libertarian, or like I'm really a conservative, but I never considered myself religious. I'm from the north, I'm not from the
Yeah,
south. Like it's more rampant or whatever.
sure.
I feel like those people are gravitating towards religion
Yeah,
because they need the value structure. They need that sort of thing there. And when compared to their alternative, which is essentially radical leftism, they're like, no, I'll stick with this one. It's a little more traditional. I'll kind of a la carte pick and choose what sort of things I follow
hmm,
more strictly. But for the most part, it's a pretty decent value structure. Like it's worked so far. It's
yeah.
rails many times, but for the most part, I feel like it's a safer version, or at least it's a more comfortable version for me to fit into than what I'm seeing on the left side of the aisle.
Right. Well, the other thing is too, though. I mean, it was a very hysterical because on Christmas Day, I was talking to some of my family members, and a couple of them were defending because we started talking about religion, and I was talking about how I have come to more of a appreciation for it in recent years as things have kind of gone off the rails, and I think a lot of people are looking for some more uh, structure because you're not getting it from the government the way that it seemed like you could, or just society as it seemed like you could for a while. And I was saying how like you can see it in people because stuff like witchcraft and and occultism is on the rise. And I had a couple close family members of mine be like, well, witchcraft is not what they say it is. It's not. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. And
I
I
know
was like,
I know people that have
dude,
that perform that stuff.
like,
Sure,
I mean,
it's out there.
granted, I'm no expert, but when you have people being like, maybe I should be a witch, it does show that like people need something,
Yeah, people need
you
something,
know?
man. People
And
need
it's
something.
like, I don't know. It might be kind of corny or stodgy to like go to church every Sunday, but it's not less silly than being a witch, like casting spells and shit like that. But
Yeah, probably it can't be much different. If anything, it serves the purpose. And I'll tell you what, I am less frightened by witches than I am the radical left. Because
yeah,
at the end
no,
of the day,
yeah,
they're not pushing for bills, they're casting spells. So you keep murmuring
yeah,
to yourself on the bus about who you're
yeah.
gonna, sick the bad juju on. You go right ahead and do that. I'll take that any day over, hey, let's push for a bill that will allow a doctor and a newborn mother to discuss the fate of a child
Mm-hmm.
outside the womb and call it abortion. Give me a fucking break. All right. Well, on that note,
Yeah, I think that'll do it.
yeah, sure.
Uh, yeah, this was an enjoyable experience. It took a little while to get going. We're gonna do these more, every week at least. So see you guys next time. I'm Dan Banis. Good boy. Good
Stay
night.
tuned, y'all.